Am I?
Yeah.
Am I taking too much time, sweetie?
On each little detail.
Okay.
No one's going to want to watch it.
Coming here and see it with your own eyes, this can judge how much truth is in that story. See, it will be better for you when you watch television later. It's fine. Not expensive. Now, we are here and we can read. We can read it. The name of the world of Trinity, Arabian and Crusader. See, all these what I mentioned before. Put it together. One is for the other, and this is they open a street to, after they'll verify that nothing important left, and we can go to the church from here. Solomon, the concept is changed. Because after Solomon, we didn't have chariots. We didn't have tanks. See? So this was good enough, and the narrower the better. Because single file by horse, or maybe just infantry, so it's easy to do that. And the more complicated the gate is, it's safer for the city. But from Solomon on, and we'll stop by the other one, by Solomon, the whole concept changed. Solomon cannot use such a gate. He has to have a straight, in-and-out gate. Because the chariots cannot do that. Must be like a tank. The tank you don't play, you have to provide a free and wide access. Now, here we show you how you invented the gate. So this is the original gate. And so maybe one point about the this was fortified by wall, correct?
And then
But
you can go to
water, with the head to
this
water,
one, you said just by single horse. Single, yeah.
And they have to go out here, have to go up to where the buses are to get the water. That's the wrong idea. So you have to surrender right away. Especially in July, August day in Israel, you cannot stay with no water, not even 3 hours. So in a minute we'll identify the places, but how I want to start is, show me another country in the world which is so connected in Bible events. I don't have. The only one connected Bible events is Israel. Here it happened, and here you can still teach. You take a group of children, you make them sit down here, and you start teaching. You teach first the valley of Megiddo, the story which I'm going to read in a minute with Brian. Then you teach the Deborah's battle. Deborah's battle, one of the most wonderful battles studied until these days in war academies in the world. Because Deborah, what happened is the enemy should have come from there and come into the valley, but the enemy thought, that they tricked us, and they went all the way to Carmel, see that mountain, and came from the west. Deborah says, okay, it's better. You let them come. There is a Kishon River by there, and it's full of mud there. You make it so that they will be attracted by you to the Kishon River, pretend like running away, and the minute they come to the mud, they with chariots will get stuck. And you with just infantry, you then get the order to turn around and hit. And they won the battle by her trick. And Sisera is the first one to run away from the battle. He finds so-called shelter at a woman's tent called Yael. She also killed him, and she has over the body of Barak son of Abinoam, ran after him. He was the commander of Deborah, Barak son of Abinoam. So this wonderful story. Besides the story about drying up the swamp, this was a swamp. You tell him how she killed with a peg of the tent.
And put the peg in the head.
I'm not going into details because it'll take me hours. He asked him about thirst, he asked for milk, she asked for water, he gave him milk. And the milk made him sleep, and he didn't sleep fast, so she took out the peg of the tent and did a sample. Boom, 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 and then he's gone. And he's gone. Then we can teach pioneering, the drying up the swamp, because this was a swamp. It was good land. When Deborah fought it was good land, and then it became a swamp. You know why? Because God made it so that it will be a swamp to preserve it for us. Then you go over to that mountain. You see a mountain which has, it's mostly dark, and then a piece to the left is gray, lighter. This is the place, it's called Gilboa. This is the battle where Jonathan and Saul were killed. You remember the battle with the Philistines, and they hung their bodies on the walls of Beit Shan. We're going to be in Beit Shan. Then you can teach. To the foot of Gilboa, there's a brook called Harod Brook. In Harod Brook, Gideon assembled 300 men. He made them drink. And those who drank pumping, these were his soldiers. Those who drank by kneeling and like leaping like a dog, you go home, you neglected your weapon. He goes the whole night with the 300 men with torches covered by jars. He walks from there to this hill called Moreh Hill. Moreh Hill, the camp of the Philistines. Before dawn, they came, they broke the jars, 300 torches, panic, Philistines run away. Another story in the Bible. Another story in the Bible is that mountain which has a white dot on it. This is the mountain of Transfiguration. There Jesus went up to a mountain. It doesn't say the name, but this is what tradition says, this mountain. There are two more versions, but the majority believes in this one. There he was in front of the disciples, was covered by a cloud. And the cloud was over Elijah on one side, Moses on the other side, and 3 tabernacles. You remember that story? I'm only make it briefly. Then Nazareth, the boyhood of Jesus, and also the Annunciation. So there, Angel Gabriel announces Mary that she's going to be a mother, conceived from the Spirit of God. So Nazareth, and there he grew up in Nazareth. Then you go over down to Mount Carmel there. See how much history. Mount Carmel is the challenge. We're going to read it later. We'll be there. You see a white dot on the highest spot. Sticks up. There's a white dot in the church. The church of the place of fire. This is what they're going to see. Then you move around another region in Israel. You have more Bible. Where you go is Bible. This is what I say, it's indivisible. Bible is Israel, Israel is the Bible. And when you come here, it's not a tour. It's not a tour to France, it's not a tour to Italy or to Spain. This is a tour in the Bible. It's a big difference. Big difference.
Okay. Y'all, I want to give you just a little bit of historical background related to Armageddon. Look at Zechariah, near the end of the Old Testament, about the next to last book of the Old Testament. Prophecy in regards to this. Zechariah 12. Everybody here all right? If you need to snuggle in, it'll help the more too if you listen. It says, the burden of the word of the Lord concerning Israel. Thus declares the Lord who stretches out the heavens, lays the foundation of the earth, and forms the spirit of man within him. Behold, I am going to make Jerusalem a cup that causes reeling to all the peoples around. When the siege is against Jerusalem, it will also be against Judah. And it will come about in that day that I will make Jerusalem a heavy stone for all the peoples. All who lift it will be severely injured. And all the nations of the earth will be gathered against it. In that day, declares the Lord, I will strike every horse with bewilderment, and his rider with madness, but I will watch over the house of Judah, and I will strike every horse of the peoples with blindness. The clans of Judah will say in their hearts, a strong support for us are the inhabitants of Jerusalem to the Lord of hosts, their God. And to skip on down to verse 8. In that day the Lord will defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the one who is feeble among them in that day will be like David, and the house of David will be like God, like the angel of the Lord before them. And it will come about in that day that I will set about to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. And I will pour out on the house of David and on the inhabitants of Jerusalem the spirit of grace and of supplication. So they will look on me whom they have pierced, and they will mourn for him as one mourns for an only son, and they will weep bitterly over him like the bitter weeping over a firstborn. In that day there will be great mourning in Jerusalem, like the mourning of Hadad-Rimmon, is that right?
Hadad-Rimmon.
Hadad-Rimmon, in the plain of Megiddo, which is Armageddon. Now this is prophecy of Zechariah that from our Christian perspective, especially verses 8 following, is to describe the time when the Jewish people as a whole will come to a sense of recognizing Christ at his time of second coming. Jewish people now looking for the coming of the Messiah, as in the future, we Christians seeing it as the second coming of Jesus Christ, and recognizing the one who has been pierced, and a reference to the cross there, and the death of Christ. Then if you'll turn to Revelation 16, and look at verses 13 through 16, it describes in the bowls of wrath, or the wrath and judgment of God, the lanes there, it describes Armageddon. Now let me just give you a little quick background before I read these verses. Romans 11 that we looked at Sunday night, if you were there, is a key chapter from a Christian perspective of understanding God's ultimate plan for the Jewish people. And looking at Romans 11, looking at the prophecy of Zechariah in relation to what's happening at the prophecy in Revelation at Armageddon, it describes how there will be an age where God will give an opportunity for Gentile nations throughout the world to come to him through the person of Christ. And then at the end of the age, the Jewish people will turn to Christ, seeing the second coming of Christ as the coming of the Messiah to rescue them, as all the world, the nations of the world, under the leadership of the Antichrist, have gathered to destroy Israel. Now, why have they gathered to destroy Israel? Because Israel is seen as a troublemaker, because they're not of that global village mindset, if you will, or they'll be seen as the thorn in the side of the Antichrist and all the nations of the world, just like followers of Christ will be seen as well in that final hour. And there will just be a groundswell of movement under the leadership of the Antichrist to do away with Israel once and for all. No more troublemaking from Israel. And of course, God is never forgetting his people. He never has forgotten his people. And in that time, as the nations are gathered at Armageddon, is a time that directly precedes the coming of the Messiah, the second coming of Jesus Christ. Let me read verse 13 of Revelation 16. And I saw coming out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. That's reference to Satan, the Antichrist, and the Antichrist's false prophet. His version of John the Baptist, if you will. 3 unclean spirits like frogs. In a sense, you see the satanic trinity there, the devil, the Antichrist, and the false prophet. And they are spirits of demons performing signs which go out of the kings of the whole world to gather them together for the war of the great day of God the Almighty. Behold, I am coming like a thief. Blessed is the one who stays awake and keeps his garments, lest he walk about naked and men see his shame. Now that's direct reference to Christ's prophecy about his own second coming like a thief in the night. And 1 Thessalonians 5 also gives reference to that. 1 Thessalonians 5, 1 through 11. And they gathered them together to the place which in Hebrew is called Armageddon, the very spot that we're standing on. And as you look out, I'm blank on whether it was Eisenhower or Napoleon, but one of the great warrior generals of the world said, seeing this, that this is the world's most natural and glorious battlefield. And as you can look out and see, from these mountains all around, and when you get up on Mount Carmel later today, you'll see even more of this great valley of Jezreel that's around Armageddon here, and how easy it is to understand how the armies of the world could gather here, which is such a tremendous open area to have the great and final battle preceding the coming of Christ. I know that's a quick run-through on some of the Old Testament prophecy, as well as a review of what Romans 11 says about God's ultimate plan for the Jewish people. leading up to this time. Does it make sense though? I mean, have I left out some gaps there that don't quite fit?